Okay. Oh my gosh, I love seeing all these faces. Yes, and if you're able and you're feeling comfortable, I would love to see you guys. Yes, hello. Oh my gosh, hi. Hi, everyone. Oh my God, this is so awesome. Hello, Rachel and Becky and Paula. Hi, everyone. So great to see you. Hi, Marie. Oh my gosh. Audrey, are you coming at us from Colorado?
Montana, pretty close.
Montana, that's right. Oh my gosh. Hello, everyone. This is so exciting. One of the things I love about doing these webinars is that I get to see my old friends. So awesome. Hi, Jennifer and Megan. Oh my God. Jean, hello, Jean. Nice headshot. Okay. The other thing I love about these webinars is it gives me an excuse to get dressed up, put makeup on. Today, I feel very much like an airline stewardess, but I am really getting into the orange. Thought I'd do something a little different.
It's working for you.
Is it?
Yeah. It's like your aura represented in a blazer and a scarf.
Yeah. I wanted a little pop of color. I think my last webinar, I wore a hot pink. So today it's orange. Yeah, this is good. Okay, great. Thank you, Rachel. You look great in orange too, girl. Okay. I'm going to give it one more minute to let folks in, and then we will get started. Yeah. I love seeing new faces as well. We have almost 60 people who signed up for today. So I'm really hoping that they're able to join us on their lunch break. Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, I'm going to just let a few more people in and then we'll get started, Angela. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. I also love the power of letting people into a party because if you know me, I love a good party. All right. Okay, I will let people in as we go, and we'll get started. So welcome everyone. I'm really thrilled to see you here. I'm Sandra Costello. I am a portrait and branding photographer. And for many years, I was out of Western Massachusetts, but this past summer I did something really crazy and I moved to Cape Cod. And I wish I could have the beach behind me, but then you would never hear me. But I'm really thrilled to see all of you here and to see that you have such an interest in speaking, even if it does scare you. I have found that speaking has been a really powerful and quick way to reach folks and to build community. And I'm really thrilled to have Angela Lussier here with us today. I will let her give a longer introduction, but Angela and I have known each other since 2016 when I did speaking school for women with her. And then she started Speaker Sisterhood, which is this amazing group that she'll tell you a little more about. It's an opportunity for you to learn as a speaker and to practice and to really get to know yourself and find out what's important to you. And for any of you who are building a business or your career, branding is a really beautiful way. Let me take that back. Speaking is a beautiful way to build your brand and for folks to really get to know you. And so I really wanted Angela here to talk a little bit more about how you can do that with ease and authenticity. And so, Angela, take it away.
Thank you, Sandra. Welcome, everyone, to Build Your Brand Through Speaking. This is going to be an exciting hour. We have action-packed information, stories, interactions. It's going to be great. And before we jump into a bunch of content, I would love to know more about you, and then I'll tell you more about me. Tell us in the chat, what kind of job do you do? Are you a business owner? Are you a leader in your company? Are you a student? And what industry are you in? And tell us where you are in the country too, or in the world, because we'd love to just know where everyone's popping in from today.
Yeah, like if there's anyone on Cape Cod, I want to know about that because at the moment I have 3 friends, and that's not a bad thing. Like I'm really happy with those 3 people, but I am definitely looking to build my community.
I can go first. I am Kathy Mickelson. I'm unfortunately not on Cape Cod. I would love to be. I live in Christiansburg, Virginia, so in the Blue Ridge Mountains, so its own kind of pretty. And I work at a university in our donor relations office. So I work to recognize and thank donors for giving to the university. I manage a team of 5, soon to be growing more. And so I'm in a lot of committees and meetings and always looking to improve my speaking skills.
Thank you, Kathy. We're actually just putting it in the chat box, but I appreciate you jumping in. That's such a good thing for speakers to do, is to be able to raise your hand and just speak. But for right now, we're just going to leave the chat box so we don't go too far into the meeting. So thank you for sharing. We have lots of interesting people here. One of the other benefits of typing it out is that everyone can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, wow. Okay. So we have lots of business owners here from all over the country, lots of interesting jobs, realtor, marketing. All right. Well, this is good to know. It helps me as I'm building my presentation in my mind for different examples and stories to tell during our hour together. So as Sandra said, I developed Speaking School for Women, which is a 6-week online course for women who want to become paid speakers. And that class is open for registration right now. And I'll talk about it more at the end of the class. And I have a special fast action bonus discount if you want to get yourself registered in the hour after we're finished. I'm also the founder and CEO of Speaker Sisterhood, which is a network of public speaking clubs for women. So if you're looking for a place to go to practice your speaking skills and build more comfort and confidence in a safe space with other women, that's a great place to go. You can check out clubs at speakersisterhood.com. And I used to be really shy, and I would look at public speakers and think, wow, they're so lucky they were born like that. And I wish I could be like that. And then I realized one day I could be like that. It just would require me putting in the work and building the skill set. And today I'm a professional speaker and an author and a podcaster. I have a podcast called Claim the Stage, which is all about public speaking for women. So you can check that out too. It's on all the podcast platforms. And I know we have many members from Speaker Sisterhood here today, so it's nice to see you all. And thank you. Sandra was our second member of Speaker Sisterhood. Out of 570. So, yep, she was our second member. She's also the reason Speaker Sisterhood exists, because she took speaking school and at the end of class said, where can we go to practice our speeches? And I said, maybe I should start a program. And that's when I thought of Speaker Sisterhood. So we have a long history together, and we're excited to talk about this subject with you today.
Yeah. Thank you, Angela. Awesome.
Is there anything you want to add in before I get started, Sandra?
I don't think so. I mean, I really wanted folks to have an opportunity to be thinking about how you can use your voice to grow your business, grow your career, and really just put yourself out there in a way that feels very authentic, but exciting. I mean, this is the thing about public speaking. It doesn't have to look like, it doesn't have to just look like being in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. There are so many ways where you can share what you do and what you love to do in smaller groups, through an online community. Like there's so many ways to do it. And I'm really excited that Angela is going to talk about where to find those engagements, how to create a talk that is meaningful to you and will be meaningful to the folks that you want to reach, And so this is just an opportunity to really learn and get excited about next steps in growing yourself and whatever it is that drives you.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions to ask. You can just raise your hand if this applies to you. Have you ever given a talk hoping that it would bring more customers to your business or just attract more attention to what you're doing and gotten no traction from it at all? I know I have. Have you ever worried that it was something you did wrong during the talk? Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And have you ever considered kind of giving up, even trying to put yourself out there and maybe going to like stocking shelves overnight where you don't have to put yourself in front of an audience and deal with rejection? Because I know I have. Yeah, like many times. I'm like, it would just be so much easier if it was me and like a bunch of tomato sauce just going on shelves all night. There's like no one can reject me. This whole kind of vision for wanting to get out there in front of people is scary. But the great thing about it is it creates visibility for you. It creates credibility and trust really quickly. So if you've been wondering, how do I use speaking to build my brand and get in front of the right audiences, you're in the right place, because we're going to answer that question today through these three tips that I put together. So the first one we're going to talk about is, how do you find speaking engagements that get you in front of your target audience? And I want to start by telling you a quick story about a client I worked with years ago who is an environmental consultant. And she came to me and she said, I heard about using speaking to build my business, and I've been joining networking groups and I've been signing up to give talks, but I'm not getting any traction. And I said, well, which groups did you join? She said, I joined a women in business group and I joined the chamber and I've given talks at each, but no one comes up after to get more information. And I said, well, who is in your target audience? And she said, I work with people in supply chain and green design. And I said, well, how many of the people in those groups work in those fields? And she's like, I haven't met anybody. And I said, okay, that might be the first problem. Your audience isn't in the audience. So you first need to find your audience and then get in front of those people. Because it can be great to go and speak and just let people know that you're out there in case they happen to know somebody who needs you. But that's a really long way of getting to your people. So you can get directly in front of your people by finding the right places to go. And the best way to do that is to really know who you're talking to. And that means not only knowing your demographic, like what job industry they're in, or what job they have, or a town that you're focusing on, but also knowing who they are and what matters to them. So knowing, like, what do they read when they're looking for information? Knowing where do they turn when they want to grow or develop or learn something new? What conferences do they attend? This is huge, especially the conferences question, because that gives you a direct link to where you want to show up. And then what podcasts do they listen to? You want to get yourself booked on those podcasts. And which Facebook and LinkedIn groups do they belong to? Because if that's where they're hanging out, that's where you want to be hanging out. Because if you do book a gig, you want to talk about it in the group so people can show up. What networking groups do they belong to? And which professional associations do they belong to? I just want to remind you that we are recording this today. So if you want to go back and make a list and take more notes, you can watch it again later, because I know I just listed like 50 things.
Angela, can I jump in for one quick second?
Yeah.
So as people are thinking about who their audience is there a particular exercise that you do to kind of break that down?
Yeah, well, I make sure that I talk directly to my audience. So you want to think about, who it is that you're trying to talk to, and then interview those people by asking these questions that I just went through. Like, where do you get information? What conferences do you attend? What are your goals? What are your needs? What are your challenges? And the more you really understand the people you're trying to help, the easier it is to find gigs, because you'll go to the places where they already are. So that's really where you want to start. If you don't really know your audience, then you're going to spend a lot of time speaking in places that don't get you anywhere. And your time is valuable. And the amount of time it takes to book a gig and create a gig and then actually execute the gig, it's a lot. And when I first started speaking, I was getting asked to speak at middle schools and Rotary clubs, and I was all over the place. And I just kept saying yes to everything because I figured, well, the more the merrier, the more I can get my name out there, the better I'll do. But a lot of it was me just spinning my wheels because I didn't really have a clear direction. So making sure that you have that direction is going to get you in the best place possible. The second thing you want to do is Google keywords. Google is your friend when it comes to speaking engagements. You could, if let's say like for me, I talk to women, so I would Google things like women's conferences. And if I wanted to speak in Boston, I would Google Boston women's conferences, Boston women's networking groups, and then whatever professional associations I was interested in connecting with. So there's a lot of women who are self-employed. So I would look for groups of women who are self-employed, and entrepreneur group and mompreneur groups, entrepreneur conferences. Any major metropolitan area I wanted to target, I would just use that name of the city with conference and the industry after it and make lists. And this is where you start, is you're going to find a whole bunch of regional conferences, national conferences, local chapters. You want to look at all that stuff, especially if you're looking to speak at a national convention. The best thing to do is to speak at the local chapter first, get a testimonial from your local chapter president, and then apply for your national conference, because they're going to see that and go, oh, we know that person and they're endorsing them. We should give them a shot. So it kind of helps you a lot if you can speak at those local chapters first. And I know with COVID, it's been really tricky with speaking engagements because there's fewer of them and they're all online, but it's still just as valuable because you can get in front of audiences this way and connect with people you wouldn't have met otherwise. And another great way, and this is what Sandra and I are doing here today as an example of it, is to create strategic partnerships with people who talk to the same audience as you, but do something different. So Sandra and I both serve professional women. And it was a great connection for us to decide to do this workshop together because she's all about branding. I'm all about branding through speaking. So we thought, let's put this together. So who do you know who reaches the same audience as you, but does different work? Because you could complement each other and you could reach out to totally different audiences, each other's audiences, and double your exposure through the webinar or through an event. So for me, connecting with like PR and marketing consultants and author consultants, small business coaches, leadership coaches, awesome, all great people. I know one of you posted that you're a realtor, connecting with lawyers and appraisers and bankers. All the people who sort of surround what you do, but don't do exactly what you do. You can put events on together, or you could go and speak at their industry conferences because there's a good chance that your audience will be there.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point right there, connecting with partners who do something similar to what you do so that you are connecting with the right folks.
Yeah. And it can be so fun too. Like Sandra and I are friends. So it's like we get to work together and be friends at the same time. So it's like, it just makes it even more fun. So after this full list I've offered you of making sure you know who your audience is and where they hang out, different Google keyword searches you can do, and strategic partnerships, post one thing in the chat that you're going to do first to start building your brand through speaking, because I'm going to share a whole bunch of different ideas. So what I want to do today is to give you a little plan to get started. And by having you write it in the chat, that's you committing to taking one step forward. So what's one thing you'll do as a starting point?
Marie put look up local groups and conferences. Jean is going to investigate writers' conferences. Good one, Jean. Yeah. Potential partners for Becky. I love that, Becky. Rachel, clearly define my target audience. I think that is a great first step so that you're really getting clear on who you want to connect with and where they are.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk about target audience a little bit more in a minute. And as far as doing customer interviews, it can be really attractive to want to put together like a survey monkey survey and just send it out to your mailing list and say, hey, can you answer these questions for me? And yes, they could probably send you back a list of the podcasts they listen to and the groups they belong to. But it's so much more meaningful if you get on the phone, even with 10 or 20 people, and have an actual conversation with them about these different topics, because you can hear in their voice what they're really excited about versus what they're just like part of because they feel like they have to be. And when you're talking to someone who feels like, oh, I have to be part of this LinkedIn group because that's where everybody is, you're probably going to find out like there's not a lot of value of being in that group because everyone's just there because they feel like they have to be. But oh, everyone loves this one networking group. I'm going to definitely put more effort into trying to show up there. So having that conversation gives you a better sense of what people really care about versus what they would check a box on a survey. And it also helps you to get to know your audience better because you're actually talking to them.
Yeah.
And you can build a relationship with them.
Can I jump in for a second, Angela?
Yeah.
I want to say two things. One, when you have conversations, like real live conversations with folks, it could just be on the phone. Like it doesn't have to be anything major, and it could be 15 minutes. When I was developing my signature talk years ago, I called lots of photographers because that was my audience. And I learned so much about what they were interested in and how I could really hone my message toward them so that they were really engaged and committed to being a part of that. But I think the other piece about the partnering that I see a lot of people saying here, like, oh, how can I connect with other folks who are doing something similar to what I do? When I was a wedding photographer, my business really took off and really grew when I connected with other vendors and did events with them, because all of a sudden people knew us as like a gang, like, oh, if I'm getting married, I want to hire Sandra to shoot my wedding. And then I want to hire the other 6 people who she's always talking about and who are really good at what they do. Like those connections will bring in so many more folks. And it's not only a natural like working collaboration, but it does bring in more clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you want to work with someone who you feel is out of your league or out of your network, and you don't know how you'll be able to get in touch with that person and convince them to work with you, a great way to connect with them is to interview them. So if you have a blog or if you have a podcast, or even if you can just post an article on LinkedIn of your interview, it gives them a reason to want to talk to you because you might be able to give them more exposure. So anytime you can highlight someone and their accomplishments, they're probably more likely to want to talk to you than just to learn about a potential collaboration with someone they don't know. So it's a good way to sort of open the door. All right, let's move on to point number 2, which is how do you build a talk that inspires, connects, and converts your audience into customers? This is another one of those points. It's like, I built a talk and nobody cares. Like the way to make people care is to make sure it speaks directly to them. So I mentioned we're going to talk about target audience again, and this is where it comes up. Because the first 2 questions you always want to ask yourself when you start to build a talk are, who is in my target audience? And what problem am I solving for them? So if you're not sure what problem you're solving for them, that's what's going to make a talk fall flat, because you want to make sure you know where you're taking your audience. What's point A, where are they today? And what's point B, where do you want them to end up? So you always have to think about your talk in terms of solving a problem, because then it becomes interesting, right? Because you're creating something that helps people. It's not just a bunch of like random information. So this is another opportunity to interview your customer and ask them, what are your challenges? And what's funny about this is you'll probably find out that your customers' challenges are different from what you think they are. And if they're not different, they probably talk about them differently than you do, with different words. What are their needs? Super important. What are their goals? What are their fears? This is a huge one. And what are their dreams? So if you can ask them challenges, needs, goals, fears, dreams, you will build something that connects so deeply with them because they will feel like you are speaking directly to them, and it will be applicable to where they want to go in their life. And it can be sort of the like measuring stick for everything that you think about including in your talk. You can turn to this little sheet that has these outlines and you can say, does this match up with what my customer needs? And if the answer is no, then just throw it away. And I know sometimes we can get really connected and committed to our stuff and be like, this is really good, but like nobody cares. So the best thing you can do is just leave it out and just do the stuff that your audience wants. And the way I built this talk today was by recognizing the questions I hear over and over and over again. And these 3 questions that we're talking about here are the ones that people ask me all the time. So that's how I knew how to build this talk in a way that would be effective and helpful. So once you have your problem you're solving for them, you work backwards. And you have to be crystal clear on the problem. Today, the problem I'm solving is how do you build your brand through speaking, right? Simple, one problem. You don't want to have 10 problems because then it becomes overwhelming. And I call that overstuffing your burrito. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to fill a burrito, but you know, you've got like meat and cheese and salsa and sour cream and lettuce and guacamole. And before you know it, the pile is like this high and you can't wrap the sides around it and everything's falling out on the plate. Imagine your speech like that because you've got too many things going on. So you want it to be super simple. And this will help to keep your customer focused on what the goal is. And it will inspire them and convert them because they know where you're taking them. Have you ever gotten off of a webinar or out of a conference and you're like, I don't even know what that person was talking about. My head is so full. I don't even know where we were going. They seem smart, but I don't know what just happened. You don't want to do that to your audience. So keep it simple. All right. And if you're doing a 1-hour talk, 3 key takeaways is enough. And that might seem like, what am I going to do with the other 49 minutes? But you want to stretch out your 3 key takeaways into stories, audience interaction, tangible advice. And you want to be able to speak slowly and pause and breathe and not overwhelm people with so much information to feel like they got their money's worth or that it was a good use of their time, so that everyone's able to process the information and stay focused on what you're saying. So the big point that I want to make too, when it comes to converting your audience into customers, is 3 words: have an offer. Have an offer at the end. When I first started speaking, I was so nervous about coming across as a salesperson. Like the last thing I wanted was for people to leave there going, was that person like a past used car salesman? Like that she just like sold to us the whole time. Like I wanted people to feel like they were getting value and it was a good use of their time. So I went completely in the other direction and I never sold anything. And what that does, if you don't have an offer at the end, is now your audience doesn't know where to go next. What if they loved you? And what if they loved the information you were sharing and they want to work with you, but you gave them no information about how to work with you? Now you're sending them away and they have to go home and Google you and find your website and figure out what your services are. And maybe they have to email you and they have to ask, like, do you do coaching? Do you offer programs? How do I get involved with what you're doing? So if you're in person, having some sort of brochure or a worksheet or something you can hand them is great. And if you're on the computer, creating a link that they can go to for more information, and also saying to them before they're all gone, here's how you can work with me. Here's what I have to offer. And creating a reason for people to take action will help them to do so. But if you leave it up to them trying to figure it out, people are busy. They're probably going to move on to the next thing, and maybe a week or 2 will go by, and they may never come back at all. So always make sure that you end your talk with the next step for people who want to go deeper. So in the chat box, as you're building your speaking plan, what is one problem your audience is trying to solve that you could create a talk about today? Is there one thing that comes to mind, a problem they're trying to solve that you could create a talk about today? Even just a 10-minute talk or a 5-minute talk. What's one thing?
Angela, whenever you break it down into little bits, like a 10-minute talk, I think it makes it easier to consider what you could do. And that's such a great idea.
Yeah. And if you want to build little videos for social media, like those are the easiest things to do. You can do one problem per video and they could be a minute long. And it's really helpful too, because it gets you to edit down your advice into one or two, like maybe 5 or 6 sentences. So you get better at editing yourself and being really clear too. So let's see. Imposter syndrome, that is a huge one. Creating a culture post-COVID. Yeah. A meaningful and memorable wedding ceremony that reflects you as a couple. Yep. Self-care to avoid burnout. Yep. Buying a house, helping with home insurance, connecting folks with the best fit contact, fabulous photos for women who hate having their photos taken, how to lead so the staff stays. Yeah. So you all get it. Picking one clear problem and then being able to solve that problem. I was talking with a woman last week who said, "Oh, I have to give this talk next week about cybersecurity. I'm not looking forward to it." And I thought, cybersecurity, that seems like a big problem. Like, don't you think people want to learn about that? And she's like, "I don't know. I'm just so sick of talking about it." And I said, "Well, maybe you should name the talk How to Protect Your Privacy." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I guess people would care about that." So it's really about the way that we present information and what's in it for the audience that gets them excited about it. All right, let's move on to number 3. How do you create marketing materials that get attention from event organizers and conference directors so you can get booked? First and foremost, you have to look the part. And having a beautiful headshot is number 1, because anytime you're going to send your information to an event organizer, the first 2 things they ask for is your bio and your headshot. So you want to have a great bio. On my podcast last week, I talked about bios pretty extensively, so you can learn more about it there on Claim the Stage. And headshots, this is the first impression you make when they see you, when they get to just open your email and learn about who you are. So you want to make sure that you look professional, that it really represents your style and your energy, and that it really puts your best foot forward. And Sandra's an amazing photographer. She's taken thousands of pictures of me. I think pretty much every picture online is taken by Sandra, and she has been doing it for years. She's really great at what she does. So if you're looking for a headshot, I would say definitely talk to her about that. But not only do you want to have a beautiful headshot, you also want to make sure that what you're selling is relevant and a hot topic right now. And the reason for that is because event organizers really want to attract people who are trying to build something, who are, on the cutting edge, who are looking for new ways to grow and to be relevant. So they want to have the topics that people care about right now. So I want to show you a quick example of something that I looked up just in 2 minutes this afternoon, just to show you what this looks like. So I went to Entrepreneur, and this is just the homepage. I went down to webinars and events and just looked at the topics. What are the things they want their audience to hear about right now? First, Women's Leadership Series on emotionally intelligent leadership. Emotional intelligence is a hot topic right now. Other things that people are interested in is how to build, grow, and sell your business. Scalability has been a hot topic lately in selling, and also healthcare costs and value. Obviously, every company is trying to figure that out. So going to your industry's website and looking at what your professional association or people in your field are talking about and which topics are getting the most attention will help you to figure out how to best position your topic so that it's relevant. A few years ago, I was giving workshops on networking, and I realized networking was such a blah word. Nobody really wanted to hear about it anymore. But I was not really talking about networking. I was talking about personal branding. And so I decided, well, why don't I change the topic from networking to personal branding, even though the content is exactly the same. So I changed the name from Networking 101 for Shy Leaders to Build Your Personal Brand in 15 minutes a day. And just by changing the title, it got so much more attention at conferences because that was something that conference organizers wanted to feature at their event. So you want to make sure that what you're talking about is marketable and attractive. So it's even just changing keywords around, but still having the same content, and that will get more attention for you. So spinning your topic a little bit will help you a lot, and noticing like, what problems are they trying to solve? And now how can I make myself relevant too?
I'm going to jump in for 1 second, Angela.
Yeah.
Just last week, I discovered this tool online called Headline Analyzer. And there are a number of different websites that offer this service. And what happens is you put your headline in for your talk, and it will go through this system, and it will rate it, whether or not the words you're using are resonating. And you can play around with that headline a number of times until you hit 100%. And it's like you're saying, one headline may not work, but another one will. And it's kind of fun actually to play around with words to get people interested in what you're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. And your title should be really clear about what people are going to take away from the talk. So you can test it out using that tool, and also test it out by asking your target audience, would you go to this talk? Do you understand the purpose of this talk through the words that I'm using for it? So the other thing you want to do and when you're promoting yourself for these talks is to make sure you have a flashy bio, and your bio should have all of your accomplishments in your field, any degrees you have that are applicable, any awards you've won, your job title, how many years you've been doing the work, any media mentions, if you've had any, if you have a podcast. You want to really make yourself look like a leader. And so that requires tooting your own horn a little bit in your bio. And it doesn't have to be 47 pages long. A paragraph is perfect. Remember, people are busy. So 5 or 6 sentences goes a long way. And a bio can be updated every 6 months. It's like a mini resume. So I think I probably have like 200 bios at this point, because I'm just constantly adding it and taking things out, and it's constantly evolving with me. But the bio is critical. Every time you speak, you're going to be asked for your bio and your headshot and the description of your presentation. So having a good title and then 3 bullet points to describe your presentation. So in the chat right now, the third part of your mini speaking plan will be one hot topic in your field right now. Can you all think of one hot topic that you could maybe attach your talk to in order to make it more attractive?
Nice. Self-care. Destination elopements. I could see that would be big right now. Avoiding burnout. How to catch the interest of a literary agent. Yep. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so you all know the hot topics in your industry. Now it's about attaching your expertise to it. There was a comment in here. Megan said she's struggling to figure out topics for a cannabis lab that wouldn't reveal to the competitors everything that they're doing. Maybe we can chat for a couple minutes after class, or if we have a few minutes toward the end of class, because I'd be interested in learning more about how we can solve that problem. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about speaking school, and like I mentioned, Sandra was one of our first students in speaking school. So she's going to share a little bit about her experience, and then we'll go into some questions. But before I do that, I just want to make sure everyone has their little mini plan in front of them. And so when you get off today's call, you're ready to start building your brand through speaking. You have some potential places you can reach out to. You have potential topics you can use for speaking, and you have some content that you can use for those speeches that will really solve a problem that your audience has. And when you can put all that stuff together, those are the fundamentals for building a really successful speaking business. And in speaking school, we go one step further to help you learn how to really market yourself as a speaker and build marketing materials, a website, how to build a speaking plan that's more extensive that you can use for years to come, how to build a signature talk that's really specific to you and your industry, and how to ask for the right speaking fee. Now, this is the part that I was so confused about when I first started speaking, and I would either like really undervalue myself or just charge like an astronomical amount because I just had no idea. So I left thousands of dollars on the table because I was so out in left field on the pricing piece. So I create pricing guides and give you some help with figuring out how much you should be charging so that you're in the right ballpark and can be considered for the gig. So I've been a professional speaker for 12 years and have made like every mistake imaginable. Just so now you don't have to. And it's a 6-week online live class that helps you learn all the steps to going from having a business and wanting to speak to becoming a paid professional speaker, either 100% of the time or as an extra revenue stream for your business. So it's a great way to build your brand, and it's also a great way to bring in additional revenue. So if you are interested in checking out Speaking School, I'm going to put the link to it in the chat box. And if you register before 2:00 p.m. Eastern in the next hour, you can get $100 off with the discount code NOW100. So I'll put that in the chat box for you. And like hundreds of women have taken the class and have had great success with just being able to get a business started, making money from it, and inspiring audiences. And so, Sandra, do you want to share a little bit about your experience with it and what that was like?
Yeah, I would love that. So in 2016, my business was going through a little bit of a transition, and I was figuring some things out, but I also knew that I wanted to reach more people, and I wanted to I wanted to build my community. And I really love connecting with folks. And I felt like if I spoke about something that resonated for the people that I wanted to photograph, then we would have a starting place. Because my philosophy is that when you are working with a photographer and you feel relaxed and you feel like yourself and you're out of your head, then your photographs are always going to be better, because it's like being with a friend. And so I developed a talk, and at the time, it's been a number of years now since I've delivered that talk, because I've gone through many iterations of how I'm speaking to people, and COVID, has kind of thrown a wrench in the works. But what I found was people were really curious to hear me talk about the things that other women who I photographed had in common. Really uncomfortable about being in front of the camera. They were concerned about all sorts of things, getting older, taking off that extra 10 pounds, being awkward in front of the camera, just all sorts of things. And what I talked a lot about was, how do we find your essence? How do we really celebrate who you are and what makes you unique, but also get amazing pictures? I mean, like, it's one thing if you like to wear a sweatsuit all the time. I totally get that. But if that is not hitting your target audience, or it's not really serving you in your photographs, then we're going to mix it up a little bit so that you still get to be your authentic self, but there are some things put in place to guide you. And so what happened during speaking school was that I really got to understand who my audience was. I did the interviews, which were really fun. And I actually think people loved it. And then from there, I could create a talk that really resonated with the people that I wanted to connect with. And I think one of my first speaking events it was a full house, which made me a little nervous, I have to admit, but it was also thrilling. And from that group, I gained a number of new clients. And it was based on the fact that I connected with the right people and I talked about things that mattered to them. So I think there are ways that you can connect with your audience, even if it is just small groups. You could speak at libraries. You can speak at your book group, if that makes sense. I mean, there's just so many avenues to explore. And especially these days, if you're willing to go online, which a lot of people are doing, there's so much out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're happy to take questions if you want to put them in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand and ask them. We've got about 15 minutes left. I wanted to save some time so we could chat. So any questions, feel free to ask. And Sandra, is there anything else you want to share about your free giveaway you have?
So the one thing I want to share with you guys, and this will be included in the follow-up email that I'll send after our webinar today, is I have created this series of building your brand, and there's a number of things that you'll learn over the next couple of months if you decide that you want to join for future webinars. The next one that will take place is on April 20th and 21st. It's actually a 2-day workshop, and it's an hour each day, same time, 12 to 1. And it is, what the heck is a lead magnet and why do you need one? And I have a writer and someone who is going to talk about the logistics, if you will, about like how to create a lead magnet and make that work. And so we're going to have a 2-day webinar where we're going to talk about that, what they look like, how to create one that really connects with your audience, and how to put it out in the world. So I'm going to put a link in the chat, but you'll also get it in a follow-up email from me. And, if you want to be a part of that next webinar. And then the last thing I'll share really quickly is, I do think it's super important to have a really great headshot when you are doing speaking gigs, small or large. And I know this because A, I'm a photographer, but B, I'm also a speaker. So I see lots of photographs out in the world, and I love playing this game. Which is most successful? Which isn't, and why? And so I think it's important to have a really good headshot. But if you are really wanting to put your personality out in the world and you're doing a number of things, I think having more than a headshot is really important. And that's where my branding shoots come in. So what I'm going to do is put a link in the chat right now, and that will allow you to sign up to learn a little bit more about why you need more than a headshot. And it's just a PDF that you can download, just gives you some ideas.
Excellent. Thank you, Sandra. Jean asked if I'm offering speaking school again this year, and I am not. I only offer it once a year. So this is your one chance in 2022 to take the class. And I forgot to mention that Speaker Sisterhood members get $200 off for the course. So I can, if you're interested in signing up, let me know and I will give you that code for Speaker Sisterhood members. So let's see, there's another question from Audrey. What's a best practice you recommend for increasing off-the-cuff speaking to fill in space during technical difficulties? I know we have a lot of those. So one thing you can do is you can ask the audience a question, because then that keeps them busy and it also takes the focus off of you having to fill space or come up with something to say. So having a little list of like 3 or 4 questions, like the ones we asked in the beginning: what's your job title? what industry are you in and where are you from? Those are great questions, especially if you don't know your audience. If you do know your audience, like if it's your team, you could have a list of icebreaker questions up there that are just funny, like kind of party questions. Like if you were up for Mrs. or Mr. World, what would your talent be? Something like that. And it just kind of keeps everyone focused on something. And then it takes the pressure off of you having to fill that space. So it's all about preparation. Whenever something's could go wrong, always try to have a plan B ready to go. And then you don't have to feel like you need to like figure something out on the spot. And for off the cuff speaking, it's the same idea. Even if, you're called on in a meeting and you're not prepared, whenever you're going into a meeting, always be thinking about like, what questions do I have about this subject? Even if I'm not asked, just so that I could maybe be ready if someone were to ask me, or what ideas do I have around this? And then that helps you to just get you into the mindset of planning. So if you are called on, you're ready to go. And off the cuff speaking, the best way to get better at it is to do it a lot because it just helps with the fear around it. And oftentimes that's why it's hard, is because we get flustered because we're scared and we don't want to mess up. That's one of the things we focus on in Speaker Sisterhood. We have a whole portion of every meeting called freestyle. And in that portion, you get 1 to 2 minutes to give an off the cuff speech at every meeting. So it really helps you to build that skill for job interviews and when you're put on the spot in a meeting.
Yeah, I think practice is really essential when it comes to the unexpected questions and things of that nature, because I think it's really easy to feel your heart start beating and all of a sudden you don't even know what words have just left your mouth. I mean, this happens to me often enough. And what I've discovered is I actually think that people are willing to give you a little more grace in those moments. And the pauses that you think are super long are not actually that long. What I have found in being on podcasts in particular is that people actually want a little bit of silence so that they can take in what you're saying. And I don't know if you guys have noticed during this webinar, Angela is really good at that. She will give you a little bit of time to sit with the things that she's saying so that you can really reflect, write it down, come up with questions, whatever it is. But I think when we're first getting started as speakers, it's really easy to want to talk as quickly as possible so that I can get it over with. And that I can really appreciate. But there is something about allowing yourself to just like look at the room. Like right now, I'm just looking at all of you, which like really kind of centers me. And it also allows me to think about the thing that I really want to share with you. I see you, Paula. Yeah, so I'm curious, like, I'm wondering, and you guys can, take yourself off mute. I'm wondering if any of you are doing public speaking, and it doesn't have to be in front of a Mongo crowd, like it could be in front of 10 people. Like, I'm wondering if you're doing any of that, and what feels good for you and what feels like a challenge.
Can I speak?
You sure
It's
can,
Paula.
Hello,
Paula.
Paula.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for hosting this. This is where I find all the good stuff when Sandra hosts an event like this. I recently had a job change, and now I'm in a position where I actually help people with their small businesses. And it's been phenomenal, but it's for the state of Massachusetts. So there's an old guard, and then there's now the people that they're hiring on board that are a little newer, a little progressive, a little more chatty.
Different?
I'm chatty. So it's hard to find that happy medium, like not coming on like a blaze of glory versus like an old guard that's talking about a business plan and this is point A, point B. But I'm super excited with the people that I help. The clients are amazing. And I can see within this room, this webinar, that there are people I want to reach out to, but I don't know if it's okay if I can pluck them from you, Sandra and Angela. Can I be like, I want to work with you, but this is like the best networking think tank I could possibly imagine. But sometimes I'm too much, so I don't want to overstep.
Sandra, do you want to answer that?
I think that if folks would like to connect, I would love it if you would put your information in the chat. And so then what'll happen is I'll just share that afterwards, you know? And I really do think that these kind of webinars are such a beautiful way for other women to see each other, because we've got women here from across the United States, not just in Western Mass or Cape Cod. They're everywhere. And that is the beauty of being able to connect via Zoom. So, you know, I think it's interesting, Paula, that you say, like, maybe I can be too much. I think that is a common worry for many women. And, you know, my guess is that most of us are working on that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, you talked about the old guard and the sort of like monotone, like nobody likes that. So nobody wants that. That's just how things were always done. You always want to infuse your energy into your talk and bring your love and passion for your talk, because when you feel that way, you give your audience the gift of also feeling that way. And you help them to get excited about what you're sharing because you're excited about it. I couldn't imagine sitting in a room with someone who's like talking like this and just going really boring, long, and feeling like I'm really energized by this person. Like it just doesn't happen because that person's not bringing any of that energy to start with. So one of our opportunities and responsibilities as speakers is to show up with that love and passion first, and then get our audience excited through it. And I always think of Jimmy Fallon when I talk about this, because I think he's so good at bringing love and that contagious joy to everything he does, because he's like an excited kid every day on the Tonight Show. And so if you can kind of show up with that same energy, it gives your audience a reason to care about it. And that's what we're here to do. Otherwise, we're just kind of wasting everyone's time. So Paula, bring it, be excited about it. Don't apologize for it, because your audience will love you for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say two things in regard to what you just, in regard to Paula. The first is you saying this has allowed other women to put their information into the chat so that this webinar goes beyond just a 1 hour chat, right? So that's awesome. And the second thing I'll say about Paula, my last Rock the Black Dress event that I had in June before I left Western Mass, she met a woman in one of the past events, and they were so excited to see each other that I have on film, so to speak, the two of them tackling each other because they were so excited to see each other. So I say, bring it, Paula.
Yeah,
I might have shown my underpants.
You might have.
I went flying. She tackled me. I love her. The connections that you make with Sandra are unbelievable and slightly embarrassing, but hey. I was rocking my black dress and my panties, so sorry,
awesome.
Totally mortified. I wish if I could screen share, I'd show you. I'm like rolling on the ground. We're at this lovely vineyard. We're all looking beautiful.
It was a moment. It was really great. Oh my God.
Audrey asked a follow-up question. She asked a second question. I want to make sure I answer it. She said, can you talk briefly about humor as a tool in speaking and how to strike a balance between communication and entertainment? I say the funnier you can be, the more effective you are. People love to laugh. And if you're humorous and you are funny and people, are laughing, then bring the humor, because that will keep them engaged. People pay to go to comedy shows after work because they want to be entertained. So as long as you're informative and you're staying on task and you're not just, up there telling jokes, but incorporating jokes into your speech, I say go for it all day long, because I'd way rather be laughing at someone than just feeling bored the whole time. So have fun with that. And Speaker Sisterhood is a good place to go if you want to practice material like that and get a sense of how your audience responds to your humor and your jokes and your timing. So it's a good place for all of that stuff. I'll put a link to it in the chat box.
And I was going to say, Angela, like, I think you can bring that humor in, online talks too. Like, I find sometimes when I'm on a Zoom call and I just get a little closer, and you can do those things. And not only does it bring humor to it, but I think people start to pay attention. So there's a really incredible energy that you're developing, on in a platform that sometimes can be really boring. Like, I get it. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Any other questions? And if you would like to connect with other people, I'd love for you to put your information in there now, because we'll start to wrap up. And I will also, I'm going to share the replay of this a little later today. And I'll also share the chat so that you guys can make connections. And I just want to say thank you to Angela for bringing it. Angela always brings it. She is such a beautiful, clear speaker. And I think what I love most is that she makes speaking to other people feel really accessible. And because it can feel really scary, I totally get it. Even for someone like me, who's a big extrovert and I love to be in front of people, I get nervous too. And there are ways to make that interaction more engaging and crystal clear so that people see you and they hear you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everyone for showing up today, for yourself and for your business.
Yes. Great.
All right.
Okay. So we will wrap up. You will find an email from us later today. And if you have any other feedback or additional questions, please feel free. And keep in mind, the next webinar is April 20th to the 21st. What the heck is a lead magnet and why do I need one? All right. Have a fabulous day. We'll see you soon.
Bye.